Hello, hello. Thank you for watching. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us here. This is Trading Wisdoms on the Crypto Banter channel. A big thank you to the Crypto Banter fam. Please hit that like and please hit that subscribe button. You're seeing that in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. This is episode 13 of this show. We've done 12 great episodes already. This is episode 13. It's December 23rd, 2021. I want to thank you for joining. Trading can be complicated. Trading can be really, really complicated. And what we try to do with this show is to make it less complicated for you. And the way we do that is with the format of this show. We start out with some basic trading wisdoms from the book Trading Wisdom. Then I'll do a little bit of technical analysis, not too heavy, just some real basic stuff to get you comfortable. And then the main feature is going to be the guest portion of the show. We have a really great guest today, Chartman Dan. He's traded many different markets. He's been doing this for a real long time. So, what I try to do is get these really smart guests on, people who are smarter than me, and we can kind of really drag out or draw out some of these issues in the conversation. And hopefully that's of value for you. And that will make things a little bit less complicated. So, I'm just a chart guy. I'm a newbie helper. I've been doing this a long time and I really enjoy what I'm doing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So let's get this thing started. Let's start out the show today by thanking our sponsor, BingX, formerly Bing Bond. They're a very nice trading exchange, really great features, really easy to use, custom leverage, copy trading. They're adding pairs all the time. So a lot of great stuff to play on there. And they have a really nice sign-up bonus too for the Crypto Banter family. So definitely check that out in the description on the video as well. I want to remind you, I'll go through this real quickly so we can get to the show. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Big Cheds. I mentioned earlier, this is episode 13. Go to the Banter YouTube. Go to the wrong playlist. I got to slow my roll today. Go to the Trading Wisdom playlist. We've got 12 episodes so far. This is episode 13. Make sure you really watch all those episodes to take advantage of that. And if you'd like, please do consider going to my YouTube at Cheds Trading. If you're brand new to trading, I'd say go right to the educational live stream section. All right. These are over an hour each. They're going to teach you really the basics of moving averages, understanding volume, Japanese candlesticks. Check that out as well. I did mention before the book, Trading Wisdom. It's available on Amazon Kindle, hardcover, paperback, and now the audiobook version. The audiobook version, definitely check that out. If you can't buy the book for some reason, I have a free version on my YouTube channel, the playlist, Trading Wisdom, 50 Lessons Every Trader Should Know. You definitely want to check that out. So let's, and then lastly, of course, check out Bitcoin Live. I'm a founding analyst at Bitcoin Live, best in class educational platform for crypto. If you're really serious about learning how to trade, definitely want to encourage you to check that out. Here's the about the author and introduction section. Hit pause in the video, watch those later at your own time. I'm not going to sport your patience today, folks. We're doing a brief section here. A brief section from lesson 20, trust your instinct. I'm just checking the chat room. Good to see everybody there. What's up, everybody? I am part of the Banter family. I love the Banter family. You guys are great. You've been wonderful, and I've been enjoying seeing you folks grow. So let's get this party started. Lesson 20, trust your first instinct. So this is really important, right? With any skill, you don't just start out with an instinct. You have to develop that over time. So, if some of this stuff seems a little foreign to you, that's okay. Give yourself time. You'll develop that instinct. Lesson 20. If you look at a chart and you cannot figure out which way it is going in the first few moments, move on. Find a clear signal. I'm a strong believer in the idea that when you first look at a chart, you should have a good feeling of which way it's going. If you cannot tell, that means the chart has mixed signals and you should move on to something else that can give you a cleaner read, right? So much of what determines our profit and loss is how selective we are with our entries. How selective, right? You could play any number of coins. You could play any number of projects, but what are you choosing to play, right? Play strength. And you don't just play strength. I put out some tweets in the last week or so, and I was telling people, play Luna, play AVAX. It doesn't mean just FOMO in. It means find a dip in those plays, right? Your job as a trader is to identify the trend and ride it while it's profitable. And you want to get that entry right. So you find that dip in the uptrend, right? Even strong trends, they'll do a bull flag. So, buy at the bottom of the bull flag and then take off from there. Buy at the bottom of the ascending triangle and take off from there. if you just buy on that big, move through the upper Bollinger, you're going to get trapped. So buy that dip in the uptrend. That's your entry. That's you being selective. So you want to be selective, and you want to play, those good plays. And when I talk about trusting your first instinct, if you look at a chart and you cannot figure out which way it's going to go in the first few minutes, move on. You want to get to the point where you're comfortable and you can see this is clearly an uptrend, right? It's clearly an uptrend because we have a progression of higher highs and higher lows, right? If you're looking at something and it's giving you mixed signals, maybe stay away. You want to be really selective with your plays, really selective with your entries, and you want to be able to trust your instinct, right? So the question I say here, if that's the case, how do you develop that muscle memory? So here's what I say. As discussed in other lessons, there are key components to any downtrend reversal, such as a higher low and then a lower high break. I'm going to show you that on the Bitcoin chart. We'll kind of walk that through a little bit, okay? Just checking in with the chat room to see everybody, how everybody's doing. So glad to be here. We're glad you're here as well, Helen. And yeah, big Cheds in the house. Great. Just wait till you hear our guest. This guy's got some serious knowledge for you folks. You're going to love it. So I say key component, right? What's going on with Bitcoin? So let's take a look at Bitcoin. So we have a low. We clearly have a low here in this trading channel, and then so where's the higher low? So at this point, it looks like this series of lows here. This is the daily chart. This series of lows right around that 45.5, 46 level. That's your higher low. Okay. So why is that important? If the price is just going down, at some point it needs to put in a higher low. There's your higher low. Okay. Because then from there, you start to get that rising trend. You start to get a level at which you can kind of say, all right, my idea has failed. What I've said to you many times before on this program is when you enter a trade, you kind of want to know when that idea fails, right? So here, if you're saying, okay, I'm long, because here's the bottom of the channel, that's your higher low. If that fails, you have to get out. Your idea has failed, right? But here we get the higher low. Now we're looking for, this is the key. We're looking for the lower high break, right? We have a very clear diagonal break. And what you want to understand about diagonal lines is they're incredibly subjective. So when you use them, you want to pair them with some type of a horizontal break. What I mean by that is you want to pay attention to when the price is establishing a very clear horizontal level, as it did here. This is a pretty clear horizontal zone. It's not just one price. It's a zone of prices. It's a zone of horizontal lines right there. That's your support. And up here, price is rejected 49.5, price is rejected here, 49.460, price is rejected here, 49.340, and it's rejected here, 49.6. Like this is the zone. So that's your lower high, right? Here's your initial highs and your lower high. Your lower high at some point when momentum reverses, right, that changes around. So you have a diagonal break. The diagonal break puts you on watch. You're on watch to now look for the horizontal break. You got that horizontal break. You got a really clear long signal on Bitcoin at about 49.5, 49.6. Like, what's it doing now? Let it play out. We'll get to the, we can get to that perhaps later. I want to bring on our guest, but it will need to consolidate. I'll just say really quickly, you want to see it close above the daily MA200, that blue line, right? That's incredibly important. And by the end of the week, we need to close back up above the orange line, the simple moving average of the 50, right? If we close back up above the 50, you're comfortable kind of being in that risk on environment. And now you're really paying attention that 53K level, the bottom of that cluster, and the bottom of the head of that failed head and shoulders that we've talked about kind of prior. But you want to trust your first instinct. And your first instinct will say, okay, I've got a higher low here. All right. And now I've got the lower high break. And you say, okay, that's a pretty clear setup. This is a clean setup. This right here, this right here, this right here. This is a clean setup, right? Everything else is maybe doable, but this is all chop. This is risky chop here. You want to wait for confirmation, right? Your funds are limited. Your time is precious. You want to be executing trades with confidence in these high confident setups to where you're not having to guess too much, right? You don't want to have to guess. I hate guessing, right? So you want to kind of, trust your first instinct, and basically you want to look for that kind of that downtrend reversing, and then kind of execute, right? Move your funds in that direction. Let's get our guest on. Let's remove my screen there. Let's say hello to the man himself.
Well, how you doing, Cheds? Glad to be here.
I'm doing really well. It's good to have you back, Chartman Dan. We've had you on this program before, folks. I want you to give some love to my man here. He's been doing this for a long time. He's going to share with us. A lot of honest analysis. What I like about him, he does not only the technical analysis, does a lot of that kind of introspective and kind of emotional analysis. I think we'll kind of touch base on some of that as well. You've got, do you want to tell us a little bit about your programs and kind of your website and just a brief introduction for people who don't know you?
Sure, we're fairly similar in the sense that, our goal is technical analysis, education, and a lot of interaction on social media and seeing, what issues people are having and trying to clarify them. But we've got our YouTube channel, The Chart Guys, with tons of videos. I think we're over 7,000 videos at this point.
Wow.
And Twitter, of course, post a whole bunch on there. But, we got the service with the chat room community and live streams and all that. Just tons of interaction because, in my opinion, trading can be a team game. We can help each other out. And I certainly know you're on board with that mindset.
Absolutely, man. So what do you think? So, like maybe we'll pull up your screen here. Let's just get this rolling. What do you think in terms of where we're at with Bitcoin? If you're confused, if you're one of these people watching this program, you're really confused, right? Because it's been really bearish, but is it bullish now? And what do I do? And kind of curious to hear your thoughts on how we got here and maybe kind of the current climate and maybe how an average retail trader should be approaching things right now.
Sure thing. So whenever I'm analyzing markets in general in the cryptocurrency space, more this year than any other year, I've been trading Bitcoin now for 4.5 years or so. More this year, I am finding useful information in other markets. And that's one thing that differs from a lot of crypto traders where they're just focused on crypto, and that's fine. But for me, as this asset class continues to gain maturity and continues to gain market cap, it's going to become more and more integrated with the broader markets. And you can see it, if you're a day trader and you're watching the 5-minute time frame, you can see the stock market open many times, and we'll be doing the exact same thing on the 5-minute time frame. So for me, it's always looking at the bigger picture and then identifying all the little pieces of the puzzle. So the first thing I look at is the broader market, the S&P 500, and I can see, okay, we've had a little bit of choppy action, but we're back up testing the all-time high. And really the last 3 days have been pivotal in terms of confidence returning to the market and bulls saying, okay, take a deep breath. We're not, dumping. We're heading back to that all-time high. From there, I look at what I refer to as risk on assets. Something that's risk on is when the market is, feeling really confident and they'll throw their money at things that are higher risk and higher reward. And for that, I looked at the cryptocurrency space. I look at IWM, which is the Russell 2000, and that represents smaller cap, higher risk reward names. And I also look at the cannabis sector, which is pretty much as high risk, high reward as you can get in the stock market world. And over the last 3 days, we've just noticed that there has been a shift to more risk on. The past month has been risk off. Bitcoin certainly experienced that 5 weeks of pullback. And we're seeing a shift where it almost looked a little bit like bear exhaustion. And as you were talking about, you have to put in those higher lows. And for me, bear exhaustion is when you hit lower lows, but you start to lack follow through. And IWM hit a lower low straight into a bounce and then a new lower low straight into a bounce. So for me, that's bear exhaustion. And so having those two pieces of the puzzle, I then went to the crypto space and said, to me, it looks like Bitcoin is starting to lack follow through. Every lower low is not seeing much follow through. Then we double bottomed. And like you pointed out, we broke the lower high pattern and the shift was on. So it started for me with the broader market, and then it just made its way into the cryptocurrency space with bulls proving it as far as shifting the short-term trends.
So that's a great way to do it. And I think that requires a lot of practice too, to know how to interpret kind of what the SPY and all that's doing. And it's interesting to see kind of when like the legacy markets are closed over the weekend and then kind of see what crypto's doing and run ups and all that. So like, what are you looking for on a Sunday night heading into Monday, kind of based on what crypto's doing? How are you playing that?
I'm watching very closely, and more closely this year, but oftentimes you will see Bitcoin have a run up, have a real bullish weekend. At least in the recent past, Bitcoin would have, well, not the very recent past, but in the last few months, Bitcoin would have a bullish weekend. And then we open, and then stock markets, when the futures open, they will go up as well. And again, it's just a little bit of a sentiment check as far as confidence in markets as a whole. And we know euphoria mode and blue sky breakouts, that occurs when all markets are smooth sailing and there's no red flags anywhere. And it's just up, 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 up. And that's obviously what we want to see in the crypto space. I'm much more confident in the crypto space when the broader market is up at all-time highs. It's just that simple. And if that's the case for me as an individual, that's the case for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other traders.
It's going to be interesting to see what crypto does here over the next few days with legacy closed, right? You know, we
Yeah,
don't.
there's
Yeah,
one more key level for me here at 52, which just was one of the levels on all these lower highs you're pointing out. And once
yeah.
you get over 52, it opens things up a little bit. So I'm very interested in this weekend. And I actually, the stock market recently, yesterday, helped me shift a little bit more aggressive as a bull in the cryptocurrency space. And it was, again, as you said, it takes a lot of practice and experience, but over the years, if you're staring at thousands and thousands of charts, just recognizing the patterns where, okay, gold and silver and uranium and all these other charts on the weekly time frame look very similar to Bitcoin. And some of them started their bounce first. Gold started its bounce first. I'll just show you this really quickly.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin all-time high and 5 weeks essentially a pullback. There was a long lower wick here. For me, that just shows me stop loss is triggering, lots of liquidity, or I should say lots of leverage in the space.
Yeah.
So 5 weeks of pullback, we pull up gold, and gold has a similar 5 weeks of pullback. And in response to the FOMC recently, which is a macroeconomic event, the weekly bounce started. And that was the first. Yeah, that's the first clue for me. The weekly bounce is underway here. I'm starting to watch the weekly bounce in other places. Yeah. And I'm also watching the dollar. We want to see a weak dollar if we're bullish in markets. And the dollar has been on fire over the last bunch of months, but double top at the high and very close to losing daily support. So if I'm a crypto bull, I want to see the first thing next week. I want to see the dollar break this level if I'm going to have some continued confidence in this Bitcoin reversal that's taking place.
So let's switch back to like the daily chart in Bitcoin. So like if you're watching this, you're not in Bitcoin. Like what should they be doing? Should they be waiting for a 52K break and maybe using that to structure a trade, or would you kind of wait for a washout, maybe drop back to 49.5? What would you think?
I always prefer to be entering on consolidation because your risk and reward is much more favorable if you've got a stop loss close by. If I am ever entering on a resistance break, I want it to be a real tight pattern, an equilibrium tightening range. And then on the bull break, I will look to exit partial position fairly quickly. Because if I buy a bull break of 52 and we go to 52.5 and next thing you know, we're down at 51.5, I'm in the red very quickly. Yeah. But if I buy the bull break of 52, I sell a partial position. Let's say I sell half at 52.5. My break even is now 51.5. It just gives me more breathing room. And I missed this move. The three chances you had to get into this Bitcoin move were the double bottom. I was not confident at that point. The stock market had not started showing confidence. We then broke this lower high. I didn't like the entry on that break because the 4-hour time frame for me was a bit too extended. And the most recent entry that I made was 12-hour consolidation. And I said, okay, we made a move straight from the low. We went up about 8%. I'm looking for a 12-hour higher low to form on this consolidation. And I then measured my fibs, because I use fibs to determine, is it going to be a bull flag or not? And if you hold that 382, it's a bull flag. And if you break the 382, that's when we start looking for a broader range and an equilibrium, higher lows, lower highs. So I based my entry. I was a little bit early. I entered, 49,000 or so, but I placed my stop under 48,000. I missed being stopped out by $33 in Bitcoin last night. And was very pleased that the bull flag confirmed and we got the follow through. So at this point, I would be waiting. The most aggressive bulls are going to be looking, and that's key. You have to ask yourself, do I want to be aggressive or conservative? Once you determine the direction that you're looking, an aggressive bull is going to look to enter on hourly consolidation. A more patient bull is going to wait for 4-hour consolidation. A more patient bull is going to wait for daily consolidation. So you need to determine what you're looking to do and what your goals are. So I personally, my style would have me looking for a 4-hour higher low at this point. And I know that I might have to wait a little bit before that shapes up.
Interesting. All right. So I like that measured approach. Are you normally using that 12-hour to kind of get that targeted entry, or is that really depending on momentum and kind of the structure of the market?
The structure, sometimes it's very clear and sometimes it's not. And I look around for time frames that have the most clarity for me, and the 12-hour just had it, this time around. Yeah. And I use it a lot more recently in the last year or two than I ever did, first 8 years of trading. Never looked at a 12-hour time frame once.
I like it. Actually, I haven't used it much recently, but I've noticed you almost get that. It's just a little bit more subtle than the daily, but you don't get whipsawed as much. So at 12 hours, pretty effective. So I think that's interesting. It's interesting to see you're using that. I'd like you maybe walk us through that falling wedge that we just had the breakout from. I saw you drawing it early. You caught this reversal early. How do you play a falling wedge? How do you identify it? Just give us the skinny on that.
So the falling wedge for me, sometimes the shape will stand out, once you look at it enough, but really the trademark of what the falling wedge is, it's lower lows that lack follow through. And again, it's bear exhaustion. So you have a low of 45.7, you break it, but we only broke it by $200. Where's the bear follow through? There isn't any. We go straight into a bounce from there. And then we ended up holding a double bottom. But as soon as I start seeing bear breaks that lack follow through, I look for a falling wedge and I draw it and I keep an eye on it. And there's a couple different ways to trade it. Again, depending on whether you're aggressive or conservative. An aggressive bull is going to buy bear breaks. Now, that goes counterintuitive. You have to, normally people use a stop loss based on support. In a falling wedge scenario, you are placing a stop loss based on the dollar risk you're willing to take on the trade, because by definition, you're going to break support if it's going to be a falling wedge. You just have to break support and not bounce. Well, what if we break support and then follow through and you're not anticipating it? That's when you stop out based on a dollar amount of risk that you're willing to take on the trade. So ideally, if it is a true falling wedge, we break support, you make an entry, and the bounce gets going right away. And my style is, again, partial positions. Ever since I started doing partial positions in the last 3 years, game changer. Scaling in a couple positions, scaling out a couple positions.
Tell us more about that. I don't think people do that. They don't understand. They say, how do I take profit? I don't want to sell everything. Well, if you scale.
It's interesting because, again, I didn't have that until after 8 years of trading. And I have friends where it's all or nothing, and I keep trying to burn it through their heads. But it's break up your position. You can become so much more comfortable when you do it. Again, if I buy 45.7 breaks, and I don't have to necessarily actually buy that break, I can watch it. It breaks, and then the bounce starts. So I can say, okay, well, I'm going to make an entry now that bounce has gotten started a bit, and I can exit a third of my position, $500 higher. And now my break even on my remaining position is $250 lower. And it takes a little bit of math and getting used to, average, figuring out your average and things. But as soon as you sell that partial position, for me, it gives me ammo back. If I have a full position, I can't do anything. My hands are tied and I'm just riding on the waves of what's going on. But if I am able to actively use partial positions, if I sell a third, I've now got that third ammo back and I've got that cash back and I can maneuver around on this trade setup. So I will always be, for me, if I'm making a mistake, it's leaving money on the table. I'm not giving profit back. So I will happily sell a partial position into continuation. And I can look at that and say, darn, if I kept my whole position, I'd have more money. But the right way to look at it and to have a positive spin on things is, okay, I've still got 2/3 of my position. And, if we had pulled back, I'd be sad right now that I didn't sell anything. So there's always a bright, and this goes to psychology, there's always a bright side to look at things. If you get stopped out right at the bottom and then the bounce takes place, you missed by that much. You're on the verge. Next time you're going to nail it. So don't get in that negative spiral and talk yourself down, because that is self-fulfilling to a certain degree.
Can we, that's a great segue, Dan, in terms of I watched one of your videos the other day with Big Jonas, and he talked about the voice in the back of your head and self-correcting. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was like, you was too much enthusiasm. And you said, or I think you said like, oh, I can't lose. And then you realize, hey, I'm too confident. Talk us a little bit about that self-correcting mechanism and how you use it.
So the way that I imagine what's going on in my head, and this comes from reading a bunch of psychology books, is just observing as a third person. There's me, my body, there's the little head in my voice that I'm talking to myself, and then there's the third person perspective, observing the little voice talking in my head. So the example that you're talking about, I had a really good day this past week trading stocks, and I could not lose. I was just nailing both directions, and it was just complete flow state where could do no wrong. Yeah. And I had the thought, this is too easy. And instantly when I observe myself having that thought, I instantly say, don't give your profit back, you idiot. That is because I've done that plenty of times. This is too easy. And then the next thing that follows is a solid red loss. Right. So I have learned to associate things with different observations that I make on what's going on in my head. And I know when I have that feeling, tighten up a little bit, because the next thing that usually follows is a red trade.
I think it's brilliant. I think, learning how to trade, learning how to read a chart, it's almost half as hard as learning how to read yourself, and your own emotions. I think that really trips us up so much. I really like how you explain that. I'm reading the chat room here, Dan. They're loving your content. They said, "Who's that long-haired guy? He knows what he's talking about." Chartman Dan on Twitter. So what about altcoins? We've got about 5 minutes left here. Do you want to talk a little bit about altcoins? What any you're looking at, or maybe broadly how to approach them? Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So full disclosure, right now my positions on this bull move are Bitcoin, ADA, and Sol. And I just wanted to space out a little bit. I want some Big Daddy Bitcoin, but I want some laggards. ADA has been absolutely crushed for so long and such an underperformer, but it had the same chart as Bitcoin as far as the tightening range, and I drew the same 4-hour falling wedge type pattern. And you can see here it was the same thing. Bear exhaustion, 119s we're holding. We break 119s. If you have a double bottom that breaks, if the bears are going to get follow through, you see follow through. You see increasing volume. You see multiple percent. But in this instance, it was pretty much a 1% or less pullback straight into a bounce. So that got me interested. And then the bull break takes place, and now it's one of these laggard coins. But another thing that I've been doing a lot more these past couple of years is observing the BTC pairings as well. And for me, that's where I get a lot of clues. And I call it the spotlight. The spotlight is when your US dollar pairing, altcoin, and your BTC pairing, so ADA, USD, ADA, BTC, they correlate to doing the exact same thing.
Right.
It's almost like they're on steroids. It's just an exaggerated move. And it happens in both directions. Yeah. And that tells me, okay, this coin is going to significantly outperform Bitcoin as long as that's going on. And it was a very similar falling wedge-like pattern, maybe a little bit of a different shape, but I knew that if the US dollar pairing and the BTC pairing both broke out together, there would be power behind that move. And in addition to that, you can also see clues of weakness starting to form. And what comes to mind for me is back when Mana, I'll see if I can find exactly where it happened, but when Mana was topping out on its all-time high run, I was looking back on the 4-hour time frame, and I saw right here. So we came off the all-time high, and there was a double top on the 4-hour right here, and it broke bull. And you say, oh, we're going back to all-time highs.
Right.
But if you're looking at Mana BTC at that same point in time, we didn't break resistance. And that was your first clue that the BTC pairing was starting to weaken versus the US dollar pairing. Right. And it doesn't necessarily mean right in that moment that the bears are going to show up, but that tells me if we're seeing weakness in the BTC pairing first, the next time Bitcoin consolidates, the altcoin, in this instance, Mana USD, is going to drop harder than Bitcoin, most likely. So you can get clues for a spotlight pattern showing strength, but also when the spotlight starts to fade, it can be an initial clue to be looking in the other direction.
I love it. That's really interesting. I think that's probably a trick most of these folks hadn't really thought about, because sometimes the USD will be rising just because Bitcoin's rising. So if you look, and like you said, you want confirmation, the BTC pair is rising, that's relative strength, and that's what you want to ride. That's where you want to focus your energy. Why Mana and not Sand, if we're kind of looking at that metaverse type of play?
Definitely both. Those are the top two. And this was just fresh in my mind. I remember distinctly this happened. But there was probably a little clue on Sand as well. And I've been interested, just recently I started looking at Mana Sand, the comparison chart, which gives us a clue who's stronger, Mana or Sand. And we can see Mana was outperforming Sand for a significant amount of time. And then just most recently, Sand with the big move today is starting to see that momentum shift. So it is Mana and Sand for me as the top two metaverse plays that I'm keeping an eye on.
I love it. Guys, that's Chartman Dan. I think you folks, based on the comments I've seen in the chat room, are kind of blown away. I know I'm blown away. I found this guy on Twitter a few years ago. I was in some play, and I was just, I was one of those things where he actually put out a quote where, like, if you're not comfortable with something, you're searching around on Twitter for people to make you feel better. And it was some chart I was in, maybe Facebook or Apple. And I clicked on it. And I'm like, what is this amazing free video? And since then, this guy's puts out videos every day. So you gotta check out what this guy does. It's pretty much amazing. I told the folks, Chart Guys on Twitter, you've got a website, the Chart Guys, and YouTube. You're what, 1 million subscribers on YouTube, Dan?
Nah, no, 170 something.
170. But you're active. That's what these folks like. You're very active. Check him out on YouTube. Check him out on Twitter. It was an honor. Really, really appreciate you coming by today, man, and spending time with us.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, and keep keeping it real, Cheds.
You got it, brother. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
See ya.
All right. Peace out. Wow, that guy is awesome. I am so happy he came and kind of dished that knowledge for us. I just want to remind you folks about our great sponsor, Bing Bong. Now BingX, they have really great trading pairs, easy to use, safe, reliable, copy trading, custom leverage. I love them. They're really great. Check out the link in the video description. Folks, you can find me. I am on Twitter. I am at Big Cheds. The book I read from earlier is Trading Wisdom, 50 Lessons Every Trader Should Know. It's done really well in many ways, thanks to you, the Banter family. So I definitely want to say thank you. I appreciate all your support. Kindle, hardcover, paperback, and you asked, I delivered the Audible version. It's doing really well. So thank you for that. This is episode 13. We've had 12 before this. Go and just binge watch the other 12 episodes of Trading Wisdoms here on the Crypto Banter channel. Great guests. Go watch the other time we had Dan on. He's always dishing knowledge. So check that out. Go to my YouTube channel. If you're brand new to trading, you want to know where to get started. You want to know what's what. You want to go to my educational live streams. Watch all 3 of them, especially the most recent one, to understand how we got to where we are in Bitcoin. I explain moving averages, volume, Japanese candlesticks. Check that out. And if you can't afford my book, I have a free version. Check out the playlist, Trading Wisdom, 50 Lessons Every Trader Should Know. I did lesson 10 on emotional mindfulness just yesterday. So please do check that out. And if you are a fan of my technical analysis, you like to learn how to trade, check out Bitcoin Live. I do 2 long-form market updates every week. I've been doing that for over 3 years. I will not miss an update. I want to make sure I keep you folks in the loop. So please do check that out if you would like. And I am Big Cheds. I really want to say thank you for your patience. Thank you for taking the time on this busy day. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful holiday season. And from us here at the Banter family to you, I hope you're doing well. So Big Cheds out.